Welcome to I Wrote That, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are navigating the crazy world of authorship. Whether you're just starting out or already established, we want to help you navigate the publishing world with confidence. My name is Larissa and this channel is brought to you by Next Page Publishing. With the help of our industry partners, we bring you the insights on the most challenging yet most rewarding parts of being an authorpreneur, along with the actionable tips to help you move your brand and your business forward. Don't forget to download your free copy of our book, Author Your Way to Your Next 100K, by visiting nextpagepublishing.net/author-your-way. Let's meet our next guest. Welcome back to another episode of I Wrote That. My name is Larissa and I am your host and the CEO of Next Page Publishing and the founder of BooksUnlimited.app. Today I have a guest who I'm very excited to have because it adds a huge amount of diversity to the guests that we bring in. So we do have a huge focus on self-published and hybrid published authors, but today we have a traditionally published author and an author that is traditionally published with one of the big five. So it's very, very exciting to have her here. Today we have Dr. Zoe Shaw. She is a licensed psychotherapist, relationship coach, and the author of Stronger in Difficult Places. She's a dynamic speaker with over 2 decades. Ooh, we got to get the measurements right here. 2 decades of experience helping women transform their inner lives. As the founder of the concept complex shame, a term she coined to describe the silent emotional undercurrent keeping high-functioning women stuck, Dr. Zoe is a trailblazer in the fields of emotional wellness and relational healing. And I can't tell you how much I need you in my life right now because I got my own inner stuff. So this is going to be a great interview. After 15 years in traditional psychotherapy, she stepped away from the therapy couch to create a more dynamic, accessible approach. One that blends the best of psychology, faith, and a healthy dose of feminine, which is so necessary in this modern world. Through her virtual coaching, online programs, and top-ranked podcast, Stronger in the Difficult Places, she empowers women to overcome codependency, untangle their shame, and reclaim their voice, boundaries, and self-worth. She is also a proud mom of 5. That is a whole job in itself. That's 5 jobs in itself, actually. Yeah. She's a natural encourager, and she brings wisdom, warmth, and truth to every stage she steps onto. Welcome, Dr. Zoe.
Oh, Larissa, I'm so thrilled to be here. That was a long intro, but thank you.
It was a long intro, but it gave us so much into you. So maybe in your own words, tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up on this particular stage.
Yeah. I started out with my own very deep shame story, which I share in multiple places. Most recently, the Oprah Winfrey Network did a documentary on my story. And so coming from a place of deep shame and not really understanding what was going on in my life, I got to a place where I was trying to both heal my clients and heal myself and understand what was going on with me. And really, the shame part started when I read Tarana Burke's book called You Are Your Best Thing. And in it, she talked about Brene Brown's concept of shame, right? And how shame gets alleviated by being vulnerable and experiencing external compassion. And she talked about the reality that didn't happen for her. And having this sense of something must be deeply wrong with me because that doesn't work for me. And yet she began to talk to some other people and found out that the same happened to them as well. And Brene Brown actually wrote a foreword in her book that said, I know my research is good. I know my research is accurate, and that it does work, but lived experiences trump research. And so Brene Brown acknowledged that there's something here. I don't know what it is because I know my research is strong. And so I began to really dive into what is this type of shame that is not alleviated by what, Brene Brown explained through all of her research. And so I began to term it complex shame. And so I know you asked me to introduce myself, but yes, I'm a mom of 5. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a speaker, a writer. I've been a writer for as long as I can remember. And so that's the modality that I work in and that I began to talk about this whole idea of complex shame and how to understand it and how to alleviate it.
I think that's so beautiful. You can always tell when someone's a writer at heart. When they sit down to write their book, they're like, oh, this is what I was supposed to be doing. This is where I'm supposed to be. And so The book, I mean, you obviously have a long history of working in this field and exploring these topics. When did the book become transition from well, it'd be nice to, okay, I got to do this now.
Yeah, well, first I want to say that I love writers. I have a heart for writers and authors. I'm creative director of a group called Hope Writers, and what I do there is really just help writers. So I want to speak from the writing point of view because I know a lot of writers want to understand the journey. And so what I can tell you is that I had this little dream that I think a lot of writers have, that one day maybe I'll write a book. You know, we're writing in secret often. I used to write in my closet. And I had this idea that I wanted to write a self-help book. But as I sat down to write, what actually poured out of me was a memoir. And it took me a year or so to write this memoir, and it was 100,000 words or more. And I didn't really intend to write a memoir because I'm this therapist. I should be writing self-help, right? And so I did. I wrote this memoir, and then the question is, what am I going to do with it? And in the process of writing this memoir, with this dream that this memoir would get out into the world, I had another little tiny publisher, Callisto Publishing, which has now, I believe, sold to Penguin, which is my current publisher. They reached out to me and asked me to write a self-help book. And so I wrote this book called A Year of Self-Care, which I just did because it did align with my brand. They'd actually asked me to write something else, which I said I wouldn't write because it didn't align with my brand. But they came back to me about a year later and asked me to write this book, A Year of Self-Care, which I did. And it really took off. It was a book that was needed. I happened to write it in the middle of COVID. It took me a couple of months. And at that point in the world, people just needed this book. And so it sold so well, which I believe is the reason why I got my contract with Penguin. And so I began to market. I created a proposal and I started to pitch this memoir, which at that point had the name Reckon with Her, which I love the name. And I pitched it. I found an agent, and here's what and I know a lot of your listeners are self-published or hybrid, and many people do both. Many people go traditional, then self, then hybrid. I love Rachel Herron. I don't know if you know who she is. She has a podcast called Ink in Your Veins, and she is both a traditionally self and hybrid published author who I've learned so much from. And so my point is, I'm just going to tell you my story, the traditional route. And so I pitched agents. I found an agent, and I was so excited to be chosen that I really didn't do my due diligence about figuring out, is this person right for me? And I see agent picking now like I see dating, right? We can be out there and we can be needy. And when someone finally says yes, we're like, oh, you chose me. We must be a great fit. And you dive into this relationship, which is what I did. I dove into a relationship with the first agent who said yes to me. So excited, feeling like I was finally going to get my dream. I worked with her for a year. We were not a good fit. She pitched me to publishers that were not a good fit for this memoir. And ultimately, after a year of both of us just kind of going back and forth, and she saw my book one way and she was pitching it a certain way, and we got rejection after rejection after rejection. But I can tell you, in that process, in the rejections from the publishers, I got feedback. And part of the feedback was, you should be writing a self-help book. You should change this into self-help because the story is really good, but it would be better and stronger if you wrote it as a self-help. And so I fired my agent, which was the worst breakup ever. It is so hard to fire an agent when you finally got one, and you don't know if you're ever going to be able to, find somebody else again. It's kind of like the dating world, like I said. And so I began to restructure my proposal. And I structured it in such a way that I was still using my story, but I had begun to develop this concept of complex shame, and I began to weave it into my proposal. And I found another agent, pitched again, found a wonderful agent, Keely Boving, is still my agent. And she got me. She got what I wanted to do with the book. She understood it. And she and I connected in such a great way. Within a couple of months, we were pitching, and This book went to auction, which is one of those dream kind of things. And ultimately, we chose Penguin, and they gave me a two-book deal. So that's how this book came to be. But it's even more of a journey for you authors and writers out there who are sitting and working hard. I got my two-book deal. I wrote my book. I submitted it to my editor, and they rejected it,
Wow.
which is the thing that I think most authors, especially when you get this huge book deal, you fear that if they reject it, then what, I'm going to owe them all this money back and what's going to happen. But they rejected it. But my editor, Susan, is amazing at Penguin. And she said, I believe in you. You're going to rewrite this whole book. And it's going to be, the thing that we actually are going to want to put out. And so I went back to square one. I wrote the book all over again. It finally got accepted, and here we are.
What a journey. And there's so much. First of all, congratulations, two-book deal, Penguin. But if there's, I think a lot of people would look at your the end point of the journey that you're at and say, wow, she did it. I want to do that. But like you just gave us so much of the before,
I
right?
did.
And there's
Yes.
so much of that that's mirrored in the self-publishing journey and in the hybrid journey, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
self-published authors can have bad fit publishers as well. Like you can publish with
Yes.
a vanity press and that
Yes.
goes sideways and then you're scarred. You can publish with a hybrid who doesn't get you, right? They don't get your vision and they give you bad advice. And so I love your dating analogy, right? Like you gotta feel it out. No, I think it comes from that, to come back to your deep shame, that place of power, right? Like we do have power in this
Mm-hmm.
relationship as the creator, as the person providing the resource. We have
Right.
power, but the industry has done an incredible job of twisting it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I was going to say in two ways. We've got these gatekeepers, and then we also have silence. And nobody really tells you about how the industry works, about, even when it comes to contracts, or it's just there's so much silence and so much kind of secrecy and unknown until you're already in the middle of it before you really begin to understand how it works. And that's why also I'm a mission to just not only help people untangle their complex shame and codependency, but also help writers and authors understand the industry and what they're getting into.
Yeah. So that they're educated, right? They can ask the right
Yes.
questions. They can
Right.
advocate for themselves. Yes. My origin story was started with a vanity press, right? That's how I published my first book. And I was
Mhm.
so incredibly let down by that
Oh,
process. And it
yes.
would have been so easy to quit, right? Let
Hmm.
that first book just go and die in a corner and quit and never come back. And similar to the drive that you have within you, I said, no, that's bullshit, to be totally
Right.
honest, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
authors deserve better. And so our
Right.
motto for a long time before we rebranded was putting the power back in authors' hands because that's where it belongs. It belongs with
Right.
us.
Yes. Yes.
Publishing houses don't exist without the author. And
Right.
somehow we've let that get twisted around. And
Yeah, I love that. And we forget that if we didn't write the books, they would have no business. Zero.
we have nothing.
So tell me more about how your publishing works.
Oh, it's going to turn around. I love when an interview turns
Yeah.
around. So we're a hybrid publisher specifically for entrepreneurs, thought leaders, coaches, visionaries, those people who are here to not just do a hobby, but make a big splash in their pond, right? Just like you did, right? Like you might have one book idea, but then all of a sudden there's five more piling on top. And
Yep.
then you branched out and you created programs and offers, and I'm guessing speaking, right? And
Mhm.
all of these
Yes.
things. And at the core of it is the book. And
Right.
we want the book to be the beating heart of everything
Mhm.
that you
Mhm.
do, right? And that's, it sounds like for you that you've done an incredible, I mean, the Oprah Winfrey show. I mean, come on, that's incredible. Did you meet Oprah herself? I have to
I
ask.
did not know.
Oh,
Unfortunately, it's just the network and the producers, but yeah,
but
it was still a great
still,
experience. Yeah.
yeah, it's a foot in the door, right? And
Yes.
again, if we look at your whole journey, a foot in the door goes a long ways,
It
right?
does.
In 5 years, you might meet Oprah because of this foot in the door. And that would
Hmm.
be amazing. I'm going to manifest that for you because
Thank you.
that would
I'll
be
take
amazing, right?
it.
Yeah, bring on all that energy. So yeah, one of our biggest goals, I mean, we were put the power back in author hands, and that's still our underlying fundamentals of everything we do, right? But the next one is the home of the $1 million book.
Mm,
How do we take one book and turn it into $1 million asset? And so that it does branch out, right? It's kind of that spider web effect. And I'm sorry if any listeners have spider heebie-jeebies. My best friend, if she sees a spider, I can hear her scream from like a mile away. So my apologies. But if you put that book in the center and then you unlock different avenues of how it serves you, right? How does it get you on paid speaking stages? How do you use it to get referrals and affiliate partners? How do you use it to build programs, create your email list, plan out all your social media marketing? It can all come from that book. And this is
Right.
where a lot of I have noticed personally in the industry, hybrid and vanity press publishers fall down.
Hmm.
They don't see the book as a piece, they see it as a whole.
Mm.
And it's not, right? I am always weary when I see you've probably seen them on social media too, like write your book in a weekend.
Oh,
Use
yeah.
AI to write your book and get $30,000. And as authors, I'm really hoping you and I both know this. It does not work that way.
It doesn't. No,
No.
no, it doesn't. This book here was a decade in the making.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And not everybody's book is going to be a decade in the making. The next book I'm writing is due in November, and it's maybe about a year in the making. But some books are. But yeah, the whole get rich quick, write your book in a couple of weeks is a scam.
Yeah, it is, and it's not satisfying either. There's a lot of AI text out there right now. There's a lot of AI photos and things like that. And I actually share this story in my upcoming book, which we're going to take a quick break and hear about that in a second. But I have no ownership over anything that's been AI created.
Hmm.
At one point, I was writing the copy for a new website, and my admin asked me, she's like, "What do you mean by this line?" And I had no recollection of the line. I have zero ownership over it because I didn't write it. Your
Yeah.
book, if it's going to be $1 million book, if it's going to get you on the Oprah Winfrey Network, if it's going to you have to own it in your core. And you
Yes.
can't do that by writing it in a weekend. It's a 10-year process or a 1 year process, however it maps out, right?
It's some process, that's for sure.
It
Yeah.
is. It's some process where you cry, you laugh, you yell. It's passion, right? That's what real writing brings out is that passion. And okay, so we're gonna take a quick commercial break, but when I get back, I want to ask you more about your industry that you're not your industry, but your specialty, the shame aspect of things, because I am willing to bet that writing the book uncovered a lot of the memoir style book uncovered a lot. So we're going to talk about writing as a healing process and how you've incorporated that in your programs. And it sounds like your writers group as well. So we'll be right back.
This season on I Wrote That, we're not just talking about books, we're giving them to you. My brand new book, Author Your Way, is finally here. And you can download it right now, completely free at booksunlimited.app. That's booksunlimited.app. Inside, you'll learn how to write a business-boosting book that builds your authority, attracts aligned clients, and grows your income without getting lost in the publishing chaos. And here's the bonus. I've included a powerful resource kit to help you plan and start your book. Just follow the instructions inside the book to unlock it. And while you're there, check out a growing library of free reads, business books, memoirs, fiction, self-help, and more. No paywalls, no subscriptions, just powerful stories and big ideas, freely shared by bold authors. Visit booksunlimited.app and download your next chapter, starting with Author Your Way.
Okay, we are back with Dr. Zoe Shaw, who is a traditionally published author with Penguin Random House and a coach focusing on shame, complex shame, that inner ickiness that on one hand we feel good and the other hand we don't, and then they come together and they just fight. That's what it feels like to me when we get that internal side, right? It's just, I want to believe that I'm a good person and that I'm worthy and that
Right.
yeah, I deserve these things and I deserve to be happy. But there is a part of me and a part of a lot of women that fights that tooth and nail. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your explanation of complex shame and how writing helped you, explore it further and uncover some things within yourself.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think it's important to understand the difference between guilt and shame. And many people do, but some don't. So I'm going to go ahead and explain it first before we even get into shame. So guilt can be a very healthy emotion. or brain state that says I've done something wrong. Now, moms especially, we've got mom guilt that's not valid, and people can have guilt that's not valid. But valid guilt is a healthy emotion that just says I've done something to break my moral code. And with guilt, we can do something about it. We can go back and repair. We can apologize. We can then, sometimes we can't fix things, but what we can do is choose to act differently next time, to behave differently moving forward. So guilt is about behavior. I've broken my moral code. There's something we can do about it. Shame is a brain state. And in my professional opinion, shame in all its forms is unhealthy. And shame is a brain state that says you are wrong. I am unworthy, right? And when you are wrong, there's nothing you can do about it. And so what we do is we hide and we run. When we run from it, we try to run, but we can't because it stays with us, right? And so then we just begin to sabotage ourselves in many ways. And so what most people do with shame is, because we can't do anything if we've determined we're wrong, is we hide. And we hide in multiple different ways. We hide in relationships, we hide with ourselves, and that hiding is very damaging, because it doesn't allow us to experience healthy relationships. It doesn't allow us to show up as our full selves, whether it's in our work, whether it's in our, marriages, whether it's even in our parenting. So shame is very unhealthy, and shame tells us we are wrong. Now, there's different levels of shame, and there's different types of shame. And what I call simple shame is the kind of shame that Brene Brown talks about. And that's the kind of shame where you feel that sense of unworthiness. You feel that sense of I am wrong. You do hide. But when you have an experience of being vulnerable, for some reason, maybe you've understood that you should be, or it just kind of happens, and you receive external compassion, simple shame disappears. It alleviates. You feel heard, you feel seen, you recognize that you're not that different from somebody else, you feel validated, and it goes away. Complex shame does not. So when you express vulnerability and you receive external compassion, there's two things that happen or could happen. The first is that when someone says, that's okay, you're just human, you didn't know any better, whatever, they give you this level of compassion, or even I've been there too, your internal response is, oh, you don't understand. If you knew, then you wouldn't be giving me this compassion. And so then you cannot take it in, and your shame dives deeper. The second thing that can sometimes happen, and this happens a lot with marginalized communities, is that you're actually gaslit when you are vulnerable. And someone tells you, oh, that didn't really happen. That's all in your head. That's not true. That's not really the experience. You misinterpreted, whatever it is. And so then you don't receive that external compassion. And once again, your shame goes deeper. And with complex shame, there's a couple of things that go on. People who experience complex shame, and I say we because I am one of them, tend to be internalizers. So we tend to temperamentally be people who tend to internalize things that happen, take on blame. People who tend to have sometimes what's considered toxic shame, or a different type of shame, tend to be projectors, right? They externalize. They may project a lot of their shame onto other people and don't consciously experience it. Whereas people who have complex shame, they internalize. And the other thing that people who have complex shame do is, as they are hiding, they sabotage themselves. So they hurt themselves. And then their shame gets really kind of convoluted, which is why I talk about untangling it, because then you don't know what's yours, what's not yours, what's external, what's internal. It gets all kind of mixed up, I should say. And it's very, very hard to untangle.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna go on a limb, and I'd love you to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like it's gotten worse because of things like social media and the way that we are so connected and observable.
Right.
In the way, like, I'm gonna be totally honest, I was watching you talk and I'm like, God, she's impressive. I could never be like her. She's so well put together and she knows her topic, right? And internally I'm judging myself and I'm shaming myself because I feel like I could never be that way. And that's that when it comes to social media and watching all of these interviews and even watching our idols, the people we look up to, the people we strive to be like, it's so easy to turn that around into shame on yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And
I love that you said that because it's hilarious because as I'm talking, I'm thinking, oh, I'm stumbling over my words. Oh, I'm not saying this as well as I wanted to say it. And that's shame, right?
it
And you
is.
are having a very different experience. But the thing about shame is a social construct. And so you were right on when you said in our world, the way that we compare and are constantly having that comparison put in our face, shame, complex shame especially, is worse because we do not experience shame in a vacuum. So if you're laying in your bed at home, you're reading a book, maybe you're naked, you don't feel any kind of shame, right? But when someone walks in the room, all of a sudden, what do? We cover up. And we cannot experience shame without an other. But the problem is now we experience shame all the time by just simply looking at our phone. And the other doesn't have to be in our actual presence. It could be someone that we're just looking at on the screen.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to how the publishing industry has got it twisted, where publishers have the power and authors don't. We were sold this idea that social media was meant to connect us and to bring us together and to give us goals and aspiration and tools and resources. And really, what it's done for a lot of us, because we haven't dealt with our complex shame, we haven't even had the language to deal with it. So I want to thank you for bringing that to the world. We've let it twist. And we've let it fester. I saw a social media post that guy. I mean, I would love to be off social media, but I'm addicted to it, as we all are. But I saw a
We
post
need it for our work.
right? We need it for our work. We need it for brand building. We need it for recognition and awareness, right? It's so complicated. But I saw a post the other day that was like, social media should go away for a year so people can get back to living their lives. And I was like, I wonder what would happen to the world if we did that. I would love to see it happen, to be honest. Will it ever happen? No, probably not. Unless there's like a Y2K of this decade.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
but
I
it
would
would
love
be
to see it
nice
happen.
to get back to our communities and to our roots and to get back to that sense of self. I also want to say naked reading is one of my favorite things. So thank you for bringing that into a podcast. My husband he always like sends a text, like, just, I'm coming home. Like, what's the status here? Do I hurry or do I warn you that I'm coming home? But
I love that.
I do want to thank you. We have to wrap up here. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story, both the complex shame, again, that language. This is one of the reasons I love books so much. And I love people like you doing this work, getting on stages, getting on interviews, because it gives us language to understand what the heck is going on inside of us.
Yeah.
Because it feels lonely. It feels lonely on the inside. I'm the only one in here, me and the 7 other voices that claim my identity. But that's it. And so people like yourself come along and they give us compassion, right? That's what you're doing, is you're giving us inner compassion and inner understanding. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the platform for people like us to talk about the things we do. Yeah.
So how can people connect with you? First of all, give us the name of your book again. And I'm assuming anywhere books are sold, if it's a Penguin book. And then tell us how they can connect with you.
Yes. So the name of my book is Stronger in the Difficult Places. The subtitle is Heal Your Relationship with Yourself by Untangling Complex Shame. And it can be found anywhere. You can connect with me on Instagram. That's kind of my place. It's Dr. Zoe Shaw, DrZoeShaw. My website is the same. My podcast is also called Stronger in the Difficult Places. So yeah, anywhere.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure we put all those show notes down, or all those links down in the show notes, so that you can connect with her. I highly recommend you do. Again, the more language we have to understand and unpack what's happening on the inside, the better we'll be able to love ourselves and connect with ourselves, and then share that light outside of us, right? If we are strong in who we are, if we love who we are, that light radiates and that changes the world. It truly, truly does. So thank you very much, Dr. Zoe. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to I Wrote That. Don't forget to download your free copy of Author Your Way to kickstart your journey as an entrepreneur. You'll find the link in today's show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps more listeners like you discover the show. Until next time, happy writing.